and fully assimilate. So our speaker today is Barbara With. She's a spiritual psychic reader since 1987. She's been conducting and documenting thousands of channeling sessions around the world, and you'll notice that some of her books are out there. And so afterwards, I'm assuming she will be there and available to speak with you about them, and I believe that they're on sale. And she sometimes speaks as the voice of Albert Einstein and other angelic peacemakers from beyond the grave. Together with the psychic sorority, which includes Lily Phelps, and some of you may know her, Barbara and the party, along with the angels, have created conflict revolution, a solution for world peace, one person at a time, each of us starting with ourselves. Barbara does podcasts, classes, and is currently on a world peace tour to help the situation that the world finds ourselves in. So with that, let's welcome Barbara With.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be back here at Lake Harriet Spiritual Community. You've been a part of my journey for sure through the years. And I come here today with a couple of different things. As Tina mentioned, have a good one, Tina. She's got 27 people waiting for her at home, so she's running off. I'm on this World Peace Tour, and I want to share with you today how I got here to you on this World Peace Tour. And I'm looking for what Einstein calls the participation of the willing. That's people who are willing to take part in what I call a thought experiment, as Einstein would say it. What if Einstein really could give us the key to how we can bring world peace? Are you willing to participate? So we're looking for the participation of the willing who want to take part in a non-violent action to end the age of war. A non-violent action to end the age of war. That's our mission. And even as I say it out loud here, it seems fairly lofty, but what I know from these past 30-some years of work with the angels and Einstein and the party and bringing together conflict revolution is it's entirely possible. And we are in the throes of this change, whether we like it or not. So I've been doing this work for a very long time, and it seems as if now is the time when the world wants to talk about, wants to have conversations about how do we make peace, because nothing seems to be working. We've escalated ourselves now to this new ludicrous place of the genocide and World War III and all coming up. So what are we going to do as just ordinary people to bring peace to the world? Well, I've got some ideas, and I'm going to share them with you today. And one of the things that I thought about when the culture of creativity was the topic was when I reconnected with I have sort of a home church we'll just wait until he finds that button. Thank you. Okay. So anyway, I have a home church myself called Lake Superior Interfaith Community Church. And the way I found this church, I live on Madeline Island. I live in Lake Superior. And so it's a very close church that's also a spiritualist. It has its roots in spiritualism. Well, if you know anything about spiritualism, they talk to the people who have passed on and have regular messages. So Kimberly and I and Teresa had just published our first book, Diaries of a Psychic Sorority, in 1997, and we're going on a book signing to Duluth. And I thought, who's going to come to a book signing with us? And we get there, and there's like 35 people in this Barnes & Noble, and it was from the Spiritualist Church, and they asked us to come and speak, and it's just been a part of my life ever since. So I met up with them after COVID, and they had like 6 people in the congregation, and everyone was really sad. And so I thought I need to interject myself here, and so I became part of the board, and we had 30 people at Thanksgiving dinner the other day, so things are going well for us. And if you're ever in the area of Duluth and you need a church kind of like this, a community, it's a very open, loving community, so drop in on them. And when I first went to speak for the first time after COVID, they said, we want to talk about joy. I was like, joy, okay, I'm driving over there and I'm thinking, what am I going to talk about joy? And I thought, I don't want to talk about joy. I want to do something that brings joy. I want people to do stuff that is going to be joyful. So I came with some songs, just some happy songs, to have us all sing together. Because as Tina was telling in the meditation service this morning, that breath work, bringing in the breath and letting it out and joining together in song, it's such a creative effort. So that's what we're going to do. And you may or may not know this song. I'm old, so I assume everyone knows it because it was very popular when I was growing up. But you may not, but that doesn't matter. Just hum along as you learn. There's a bright golden haze on the meadow. There's a bright golden haze on the meadow. The corn is as high as an elephant's eye, and it looks like it's climbing straight up to the sky. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I've got a beautiful feeling. Everything's going my way. All the cattle are standing like statues. All the cattle are standing like statues. They don't turn their heads when they see me ride by. But a little brown maverick is winking her eye. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I've got a beautiful feeling. Everything's going my way. All the sounds of the earth are like music. All the sounds of the earth are like music. The breeze is so busy, it don't miss a tree. And the old weeping willow is laughing at me. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I've got a beautiful feeling. Everything's going my way. Everything's going my way. Okay. Well, you guys, you're like, you just didn't know if you really wanted to sing, or did you not know it? Oh, no. It's never easy, is it? All right. Well, I love that. Oh, what a beautiful morning. So, the other thing that I want to do here is talk about this mission that I'm on for world peace, one person at a time, starting with you. And I want to share a little bit about what my background is so you can kind of see the unusual and kind of miraculous series of events that took place in my life that have led me here now to you. Because the information that has come through working with Einstein, working with the angels, but most importantly, working with the psychic sorority, who were 3 of us brought together We started doing groups, and this is the 30th anniversary of the first group that we did back here in 1993. Kimberly Lilith Phelps and Teresa McMillan and I held a group channeling, and from that information that came out, everything else has come. So I want to start with channeling, because people always go, what is channeling? And the way I describe it, and the way I describe how I was introduced to it, was through music. Because I was very young when I climbed up onto the piano, maybe 5 years old. But I had a culture of creativity in my home. My parents played, my sisters sang, everybody played. So I was the baby. But I began to figure out what those notes were. I began to teach myself how to read music. I began to then write songs when I was young, 12, 13 years old. And the way I described it was that when I was 13, I'd say I would go into outer space and I would listen for the song that was already written. And then I would bring it back, and somehow I knew how to translate it into notes and melody and words. And to me, that was channeling. And so in high school, when Mike McCoy said to me, you need to come and see what my mom does. I was like, what does your mom do? And his mom, Eunice, was a channel. We didn't call her a channel. She would light a candle, and she looked very Buddha-like. She had a beautiful picture of Jesus behind her. She'd close her eyes, and she would say the most beautiful things and the most healing viewpoints. She would take things in my life that I thought were shameful, and she'd somehow turn them into something meaningful and magical, which was, I was not getting that anywhere in my life. And when I asked her, what is this? Because you'd want to, right? Know what's going on. She said, I go out into outer space and I listen for these voices and I hear them and I feed them back to your human mind. But I'm just an antenna picking up frequencies that I can translate. And I thought, that makes sense. It's like music. Why do I know how to translate this into piano and vocal? Who knows why? It's a mystery. So I could relate to that. So I got readings with her for many years, and everything she talked about, this beautiful healing power of music. I was going to be traveling the world, healing the world with this beautiful music. And sure enough, I started to become, oddly, Judy Bell remembers back from the way back, I started to make some headway in that. And I only wanted to be a rock star my whole entire life. There was no other avenue that I was going to take from the time I was 5 years old. So I was starting to get gigs, I was starting to win awards, I was getting recognition, and I was on the road. But nothing was ever enough. I could not in that time recognize that everything that she had been telling me was coming true. Because I had this idea of what I thought it was supposed to be. It was going to be me having lunch with Bruce Springsteen and Joni Mitchell, and that meant I was going to be successful. And so everything else got sideswiped. And because of my own traumatic upbringing, and it was the 70s and the 80s and rock and roll, so what didn't quite turn out, and like all those beautiful predictions that she was making. And I finally retired, came in off the road, and that's when I started to spontaneously channel through automatic writing. I was writing a letter to my friend, telling her how bad it is to make judgments. Yes. And suddenly my hands became independent of my thinking. And these beautiful words started flowing out of me. And it said, yes, because when you make judgments like a lens in a camera or your eye, everything closes down to a tiny little speck, and that's all that you see. So open up. And I said, who are you? And they said, sound. And I was okay with that. fine, sound, that makes sense. I've been doing sound my whole life. So I just went on. And they continued to frame parts of my life that had been wasted in my head, addiction and alcoholism, and they turned it into something really meaningful. And so I began to channel like my mentor did. She spoke. I, one day, had the courage to experiment, do a thought experiment and speak. And I don't know what they said the first time, but the people who were present were exceptionally moved. And so people started coming to me for readings. And I would read for people, they'd leave, come back in 6 months, they'd leave. I never talked about, what does this mean? What are they saying? What's going on with you? What does this matter? And so in 1993, 30 years ago, I thought, I want to do a group. I'd been reading Jane Roberts, if you're familiar with Jane Roberts, and of course, Edgar Cayce. And they did groups. They did at least small groups. I want to do a group. Well, nobody I was channeling for wanted to do anything, so I sort of shrugged it off and forgot it. And then suddenly one day in May, a referral came. All my business was referral. She opened the door, and I gasped, as if I knew her. And Teresa came in. She had a reading. She left. She sent Janice and her sister and her first cousin and 3 other women for readings. And then she sent Kim. And when Kim came, I knew something was up. We just talked about this the other day. She's sorry she can't be here. She was deathly ill last night, but she was going to come and share this story with you. But I had just found out that my trio was going to open for Tower of Power in First Avenue. So I was really excited. But when she came in, and the reading, I was holding on to the couch for dear life, just a mile a minute, talking a mile a minute. And she went home, and she transcribed her reading. This is the first time anybody has ever done such a thing. And then she called me up and said, "What's this mean? What does this mean?" I was like, "I don't know, let's talk about it." So they began showing up at my gigs, not in a bad way. They weren't stalkers, but we would talk on the breaks about this and what does it mean. And so eventually, it was probably about this time, end of November, I had this brilliant idea. Oh my gosh, here's my group. Of course, here's my group. These women, and they, at the same time, were saying, "Hey, let's get the group together. Do you think Barb would come and have wine with us and talk more about this?" So I called them, and they're like, "Oh, what a funny thing." And so we arranged for this group at Teresa's house on December 14th, and it was like 25 below. And we talked for 2.5 hours. I had no idea. I had no anticipation. I had no expectation. It wasn't like I wanted to be some spiritual leader here. It's like, what would they say? Because I'm kind of I'm an antenna. I don't have angels. I don't have dead people. And right out of the gate, these voices said, "We're here because we have a revolutionary way, we think, for humans to solve conflicts from within that would also then be a pathway to global peace." They didn't say it exactly like that, but they said that's what they told us. And when the girls asked, "Who are you?" they said, "Angels." And I'm a skeptic, by the way. I welcome skepticism. I think it's a very healthy thing we need more of in this day and age. But I was like, angels? And I wasn't sure about how I felt about that. It wasn't Doreen Virtue and, airy-fairy peace stuff. This was hard stuff they were showing us. But what Lily said was, Kim, she later became Lily, that she didn't care if it was the Easter Bunny because her life was changing in ways she couldn't even imagine. And we were watching each other change as we did these processes they were asking us to do. And they said, we need to test this on conflict. You can't hire an actor to play the part of somebody having conflict in order to test their theory. And here were the three of us. We called ourselves the psychic sorority. And I often wondered how these angels knew that we would stick with it. Because this work of conflict resolution, it's the hardest work you'll ever do on yourself. It's the deepest shadow work that you can ever reach to. How did they know? The three basic, well, they were best friends, but I didn't know these women from Adam. How would we stay together? How would we test it? And sure enough, we had our first fight. And we're at my kitchen table, and you this and you that and you that. And I was like, hold the phone. Let's get the transcript from the last master session from these angels. And what it said was, if you are emotionally involved in a conflict, your root of that is within you. Now, this was a revolutionary idea to somebody like myself who liked to be the victim and blame everything and project all over everybody. My head literally snapped around when I channeled when it came out of my mouth in that session, and I thought, what does that mean? What does it mean it's the root is within us? And that was the beginning of a long answer, 30 years of answers to that question. But at the time, when we were sitting at my kitchen table, going back and forth, and I read that line, and there was like this, we called it satori. I don't quite remember what that used to mean, or maybe it still means something, some sort of insight that swept over us. And we all looked at each other and we just started crying. And I said, all right, what I could do better is I could really realize that blah, 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 blah. And Kim did the same thing, and Teresa did the same thing. And we had a whole different outcome than the old way of us versus them. You against me, your power. And not only in that moment, when the whole dynamic shifted, like Tina was moving the energy with the meditation this morning, the whole energy shifted. And it laid the groundwork for the fact that Lily and I and Teresa, 30 years later, are still in this work. And actually, Lily just had a reading, and I won't tell you everything in it, but there was something that was said that was so profound, and they said, we didn't know how, we were concerned about how we were going to inspire you to do this work. We just didn't know. But then, what we saw was, we were right. That our theory was right, that our theory was the truth. And that what we were watching was not you being inspired because we told you, or you being inspired because we're the angels, but you being inspired because it was true and it was working, and you were feeling it, and you were growing from within because of the work that you yourselves were doing. And I don't know how these kinds of things come about. I don't know what other people who've been through this do, but it's pretty profound. So we kept our books, and we published our first book in 1997, Diaries of a Psychic Sorority. And we gave it to a literary agent. And because of that, I was put in contact with a tabloid in London, was looking for an interview with Princess Di from Beyond the Grave on the 1-year anniversary of her death. And skeptic in me went, what? It took me a long time. It's like, that just doesn't sound ethical. I don't know how I'd ever do it. It's not like I talk to a lot of dead people. I mean, these angels, I'm a little not quite so sure about, but I learned I could speak to Teresa's mother. I learned I had this intuitive gift to talk to Dorothea's son, who was 36 years old, autistic, and never spoke a word in his life. She hired me to sit between them and answer questions as if I was listening to him. And after 2 sessions, she said, yeah, that's him. I can do that. Thank you very much. But go to a famous dead person. The dead people were coming to me and saying, help my child. So I did. I thought, okay, let's try. So I channeled the questions, I channeled the answers in writing, printed it off, read it, and was stunned at the depth of the information, at the level of psychological articulation about what her life was like. But her last words, her big message was, if everybody who mourned me would make peace within themselves, then we would have world peace. And what better way than to use my fame to get in the tabloids to plant these seeds? And I said, wow, that's brilliant. And she said, I know, but we are not in charge. So the tabloid, of course, didn't want it because there wasn't enough dirt about Charles. But we went on to talk to others. We made a list. Who would want to talk about this? And by the time we got to John F. Kennedy, which, by the way, yeah, just all of that he said there has been validated over these past few years with all the information coming out. But he said, we're going to tell you who's in this book. We're writing a book. And when they got to Albert Einstein, I knew that voice. That was the voice I'd been channeling. That was sound. That was probably all the way back to music. Something impelling me at 5 years old, to step up to a piano bench. And so I had not been a particular big Einstein fan, but I was in love in that moment. And I decided to do a book just for him. In 2005, the 100-year anniversary of his miracle year. And in that book, that was the time period. I channeled 6 or 7 sessions with different groups, different people asking different questions, and then I set about to edit. And that was where he delivered to me the unified field theory, which is something he could not do in life. And that is that they're still really looking for, which is how things work on the microcosm, the same as the macrocosm. It's different so far. He delivered that, and along with that is what he calls the maps of human consciousness. So you don't have physical reality without having human consciousness. And I think that's one part of all this work that I find fascinating as I watch the scientists who really are looking for the scientific unified field theories, is that nobody seems to be able to write that into a formula. How do you express that? And he came forth with what I think was just, and still do, is the most brilliant, genius idea of compassion, and a definition, a scientific definition, that can be quantifiable. And so it takes compassion, we say compassion with a capital C, because we all have ideas of what compassion is. It's love, it's empathy, but this is a completely elevated definition of compassion as the 5th fundamental force of the universe. So there's 4 fundamental forces: electromagnetics, gravity, strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force. And they all have a different effect on energy and how it forms into physical matter. And compassion is the 5th fundamental force. It's the intelligence that uses these 4 fundamental forces to impel the creation of the physical world one step at a time. And this book became, it guided me all around the world, had a life of its own, and brought me into a lot of different situations where I could present these ideas as unified field theories, because I'm not a scientist. I dropped out of science. I don't know math. All I ever wanted to be was rock star. So I don't know. Does this make sense? Am I just setting myself up to be embarrassed to publish this book that says I'm talking to Einstein and all I have is a bunch of gibberish? I don't know. So as I've traveled and articulated it and found the feedback from everyone, people don't know sometimes, but it's really very plausible now, all these many years later, and all the many people and all the many tests I put it through, that this really is what it is. It's a unified field theory that Einstein delivered from afterlife to me. And because of the work that the psychic sorority and Kimberly and Teresa and I did, resolving those conflicts and developing conflict resolution, I've been prepared to be able to now take this and conflict resolution, which we started training in 1999. It's been trained as anger management and personal empowerment and manifestation, but it really is about resolving conflicts in here using this map of human consciousness and our own willingness to participate in that process. It's got to be both. You know the process and you're going to participate in it. Because a lot of times we know processes. We know processes up the wazoo. We can go to the library and study how to be a pilot and how planes work and set up a little fake thing, where we're pretending we're flying, we're getting the hang of it and maybe imagining. But it's a whole other story when we get out on the tarmac and climb into the plane. So conflict resolution is based on, I'm going to give you a really abbreviated sense of it. It's based on what we call 3 human dimensions in these maps of human consciousness: emotion, intuition, and intellect. And these 3 human dimensions are much like our organs. They're spiritual organs, like the heart pumps the blood, the stomach digests the food. Each has their own purpose and their own function, but they work together. And Einstein says that compassion, as the 5th fundamental force of the universe, is the intelligence that's impelling the creation of the whole entire universe, one step at a time. So creation is about compassion, and compassion is programmed to create. So we are, by nature, creative beings. Just sitting in a chair, you're creating yourself right now through your body. It's funny, I was on a podcast not long ago with a young man in India that he was very steeped in the ancient Indian traditions, and I can't remember which one that he knew, thousands of years old, but he said to me about halfway through the podcast, he said, now, I have to tell you this. There's all these bodies, you have your real body, and then you have your subtle body, and then you have your emotional body, and he's going through all the structure. And he says, but these teachings, thousands of years old, it gets down to when it gets really down to the root and the source, there's this one word, and there's this one half of that word, and what it means is compassion. And I thought, okay. I think we're onto something. I think that's exactly what Einstein has said, is we are compassion. We are that 5th fundamental force, made up of that. And the other thing that he said that was so revolutionary was that the center of the universe, the source of everything, the nothing, the void, is in the center of the planet. That was another moment when I heard that and I thought, really? You're going to make me say this? That the source is in the center of the planet? Well, what about all the other planets? So do they all have, and I just heard Brian Greene, who is a string theorist, talk about how in the center of the earth is a black hole. I saw it on YouTube and it freaked me out because that's what Einstein said in 2005. The center of the earth is a black hole. And compassion, the 5th fundamental force of the universe, mysteriously impels energy to step out of nothing and into everything and create a circular membrane domain, like a compass that draws circles. That's the first way you can detect compassion. It creates this thing called a compilation of consciousness. So at your root, you have your own compilation of consciousness that surrounds all of the mathematics that are eventually going to be the chair and your friends and the lights. And then from that compilation of consciousness, a gravitational wave is sent out, and it goes literally through the surface, through the center of the earth, working its way up to the surface of the planet. And as it bursts through into the outer world, it creates the lens of the physical world. And here we are. This miracle, we're all here creating this right now, all of us co-creating it. But that wave continues on up into the heavens until it reaches the edge of the Earth's electromagnetic field. You know, the Earth has a field that goes from North Pole to South Pole. I guess it's changing recently, but and it gets swept back up, back into the North Pole, down into the center of the planet, and it begins again. And it spins, and this is what is at the root of the microcosm of who we are and also the macrocosm. So we are that much of the earth as well. We're that part of the earth, we're that part of the heavens. But this lens here that looks so big, this is only 10% of that whole operating system. So I've studied this map and decided that the three most important parts of this big idea is that on that gravitational wave that's going from the source with all your math to the lens that's creating the world, this is a projection, like a projector. And whatever is on this wave, this part of the wave, is perfectly manifest in the lens as per the math of what that is. And that's why you can have a perfect system creating chaos. Because on this part of this gravitational wave, this non-physical part of us, this is where these three human dimensions reside. So you can't see them. You don't even know they exist. But what we can do is we can look at how it's manifesting, the conflict, perfectly manifesting from whatever is programmed onto these waves in here, and start to revolve it back to understand what that means in those three human dimensions. So what Einstein says is what we're looking for, what we're all striving for, is what he calls being aligned to compassion. And this is how he describes it. Compassion impels energy in this miraculous way to leave that void and step in to your compilation. And that wave begins to flow. And the first part of that wave is emotion. And not emotions like feelings and all that. Emotion like it's the primordial soup of who you're going to be. And so all these particles, they're actually fractals. All of the things that make up my body are strewn there, and they're beginning to communicate. I am Barbara. I am Barbara. So this beginning kind of separation from the oneness. Now that moves and it morphs into two, the second, which is intuition. And intuition, we say, is a small impelling that's impelling you to take the next step for the good of the whole system. Not the good of everything that's going on in the world, but the good of this system right here. And it's not going to make the decision, it's going to impel you to take the decision. And then it flows up and it gets to the third part, and everything's now pulling together. It gets to intellect. And intellect is where thinking, defining, has a very important part of getting into this lens, because it's defining, it's saying that is a chair. And at some very subatomic level of intellect, all of us have a messaging that's going, that is a chair, that is a chair, that is a chair, that is a chair. There's a sound to it, there's a definition to it. And it's also where ego is, and it's where free will is exercised. So in this operating system, whoever created it, compassion, God, it's set up so that ego can say no to the voice of intuition, which is the voice of emotion, which is the energy of compassion, impelling you to take that next step for the good of the whole situation, for the whole. And your ego can say, no, I'm not gonna. And Einstein says this gap is where all conflicts begin. And I akin it to, who remembers spark plugs? To see how old I am, right? They have a little curved thing, and there's a little gap, and it has to be this measured with this millimeter. And if it's even a little bit off, your car can sound like it's gonna die. But if you get that tuned right, just gapped right, and that's what Einstein is saying, is that this piece for all of us is the piece where we can begin to repair the us versus them, the ego in control, and start to align to compassion so that when emotion flows up through us and we take that breath, because we don't want to not feel emotion, please put that out of your heads. There are no bad emotions. There are no lower frequencies we have to get away from. We're trying to unify the whole thing. We're trying to feel everything. And the more that we let ourselves feel and breathe and it comes up in our intuition, the more we can hear the voice of God and take action to do that, to take those steps. And I'm going to just wrap up here by saying that I've offered to, after the service, take a half hour and come back and do a channel. If anyone's interested, let me know. And I am on my way to parts away to do my peace tour, and I'm very grateful that I got to stop here and share this with you, because you're helping me to learn to articulate. You're helping me to carry this energy forward into the world. And yes?
What kind of channel will you be doing and what is the cost involved? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
What kind of channel are you doing? What's the cost involved?
today
Yeah.
I'm going to channel Einstein and the Party and the Angels, and it's free.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, let me do another song. Can we do that? And then we'll get going to where we're going. And this one you might know just because. Imagine there's no heaven. Amazing if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger, a brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Oh, thank you. I think there's an offering.
Thank you very much. That was very packed full of so many wonderful tidbits that we can all take home and bring into our heart and see where to go with all that. So thank you. Yay.
Thank you.
So now it's time for our offering. So Dave and John are going to pass the basket. And as you know, we are a volunteer organization, and all of your donations help us to bring beautiful speakers like Barbara here and keep the doors open and the lights on. So give what you can. Thank you.
All right. I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Yes, I can make it now, the pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is the rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Look all around, there's nothing but blue skies. Look straight ahead, there's nothing but blue skies. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Uh-oh, it's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful.
Do you guys do circles?
Not yet.
Oh.
We're going to bless this
Oh,
offering, and then we're going to do the circle.
Okay, so you're gonna bless the offering.
Yeah, we
And I'm
are.
gonna do the circle.
Yes,
Okay.
it's all good.
I can pivot.
All right, so is our tradition here, if you would raise your hand and repeat after me. God's perfect love
Perfect love
flowing through me
flowing through me,
blesses and multiplies
blesses and multiplies
all that I give,
all that I give,
all that I receive,
all that I receive,
and all that I am.
and all that I am.
And now we're going to circle up, and Barbara will lead us in a closing circle. Yeah, we might have to go between the chairs here. Come on, guys, we can do this. Some of you
It's-
guys
it's-
go through the chair.
Always an exercise in human nature.
There you go.
Problem solving.
We need a director of circle.
Right. Oh, that's good.
All right.
Okay. Mother, Father, God, thank you so much for bringing us together this morning to talk some story, to listen to a view of a higher world that originates within us, and send us off today with the inspiration to go inside and learn to align ourselves to compassion and listen to that voice of God within us. We say this name. Amen. 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 All right. Thank you.